Hey everybody, it's time for another episode of What I'm Working On. This is the podcast where I talk about what I'm working on as a content creator, indie app developer, that kind of stuff. We get into the business type stuff on this show, and it is a running series. So if it's your first time catching it, take a look back on the YouTube channel or on the podcast, and you'll see some previous episodes where I'll kind of pick up where I left off. And last time I said I wasn't going to put out another episode until after I launched the course, because that's all I would be doing. Well, nothing ever goes to plan, right? A lot of stuff has happened, so I thought I'd put out a quick episode here. So the highlights are I accidentally applied for a job. There's some sponsorship action that might be interesting. I had to dive back into Luna as part of some consulting for like a break glass in case of emergency. You need a developer, so I had to do that for like 2 weeks. Again, I'm still working on the course, and I'm kind of dipping my toes into like angel investing. So those are like the main topics. Let's start with the accidental job application. So if you saw last episode, you know I had pretty much decided that I wasn't going to apply for a job. Real quick recap, just in case you forgot or you're new. Over quarantine, working on my own business by myself, a year of that, I got kind of bored, maybe a little lonely. I really started to think I wanted to work on a team. So I started like kind of exploring, some potential job opportunities. Well, during that time, I took a trip home, got to see friends and family and hang out. Also, the city I live in is starting to open back up again. So that kind of like cabin fever of quarantine started to go away. And with that, so did my desire to like work on a team. So that's where we left off. However, then I saw this tweet. Now, this is the CEO and founder of a very popular decentralized finance platform. And this is something I don't really talk about anymore. I had mentioned it, years prior in some of my older videos, but I am pretty big into crypto. And the reason I don't talk about it is because, there is a lot of absurdity. There's a lot of ridiculousness out there, right? All the Doge stupidness, the NFTs got a little out of control. Although I do think NFTs are going to be a big deal. Like the idea of programmable royalties on digital goods, there's definitely something there. But like I said, there's a ton of noise, a ton of ridiculousness, and I get all the criticism of it. However, through all that noise, there's absolutely some signal, and that signal is ground. Like it's a big fucking deal. Like it's huge when you kind of just sift through all the noise. And I think a lot of the people that haven't gone down the rabbit hole and like learned about all this stuff, they're seeing all the noise, all the ridiculousness, and immediately dismissing it. And that's human nature. I kind of get it, but in my opinion, you're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's an American term. I don't know if that'll fly like internationally, if they'll get it. But essentially, like you're throwing away something that is a big deal over like some ridiculousness that's going on like right now. And it's just a very nascent industry, and you're going to get that. Same thing happened with the internet back in the day. But anyway, back to this tweet and this potential job. Like I'm particularly fascinated with DeFi or decentralized finance. And it's basically like, a cross between finance, economics, and software development, which like hits me like perfectly. Like it was like made for me. And essentially it's reinventing or reimagining, a financial system that in my opinion is going to severely disrupt our current financial system because it's not great, the current iteration of it. But anyway, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Let's talk about the take-home project that I really, really struggled with and kind of how all that went down, because I think that's what's interesting to the iOS developers. So the process went, I responded to that tweet with a DM. He hooked me up with their hiring person. We had the intro call. Then I had a quick like technical intro call, like not like live coding, just a chat with their CTO. And then from there, we went to a take-home project. Now, from last episode, you'll know I said I got my ass kicked on a take-home project. Got my ass kicked again, but this time it was different because like I really wanted this one. Because the idea, back to like me being super fascinated with DeFi, is that like I don't need money, I don't need a job, but the idea that I could deploy my human capital, my talents, to help move DeFi in this industry forward to something that I think is very important and is going to be very disruptive, that was tantalizing to me. So that's why I wanted to do it. And I say that to preface it, like I knew going into this, like I would only, accept this job or do this project if I thought that I could just crush it and really help them move forward. If I felt that I was in over my head or I would be a liability, like I don't even want it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my mindset going in. So this take-home project, I literally worked on for 2 straight days, like no bullshit, like 12 hours a day, like 7 a.m. to like 8, 9, 10 at night. That's more than 12 hours, but whatever. It was a rough schedule. I guess if you take some lunch and some breaks in between, whatever. But yeah, I went hard on this project. And so the iOS app, like, yes, it was an iOS take-home project, and yes, it was an iOS app. I'll show some screens here. The iOS app, relatively basic. The hard thing, and like what I shouldn't even say like kick my ass. Like I got pretty far on it, but essentially like I'm communicating and interacting and programming on Ethereum smart contracts, which is like a completely different world. It would be like learning a new language and a new platform all in the span of 2 days for a take-home project that you're trying to get a job for. Like you can't just know iOS development. You have to understand how Ethereum works, how the smart contracts work, how they interact with each other, how they communicate. Conceptually, it's similar to like making a network call, like the fact that you send some information to a server. In this case, it's a smart contract. They do some stuff and they send you back information. So conceptually, it's similar. That's where it ends though. And the things I struggled with is like, yes, there's some libraries that help you kind of interact with Ethereum smart contracts, because again, I'm not going to rewrite all the cryptography and everything like myself. Of course not, especially on a 2-day project. However, not too many iOS developers out there are working in this space, right? So there's very, very minimal, like educational content, like how to learn to do this. The libraries, the basics are documented, but anything past the basics, you gotta dig in, figure it out, trial and error. Sometimes they're not very well maintained, and this space moves so fast that if you haven't maintained your library in 6 months, like, okay. So that was my struggle, like figuring out, like again, I knew conceptually what I had to do. But figuring out how to get the library to like do it and all that stuff, and understanding the way things are formatted. Like it's kind of similar to, if you remember how if you first learned how to parse JSON, right? Now it may be second nature to you, but when you were first learning network calls in JSON, that was probably pretty difficult. Like how to take this JSON, parse it, and create your objects. Similar concept, but like all new stuff. So anyway, I almost completed the project. I got a lot done. I was able to create a wallet. I was able to import a wallet. I was able to make a deposit onto their lending platform. Like I was able to work with it. There was just a couple things that like really hung me up that I couldn't get over those hurdles within the time period, for the take home project. And like I said, 2 straight days of working on this. And I felt, it is what I wanted to talk about mainly. Like I felt like the give up like 6 or 7 times. And I think some of you can maybe relate to this when you're working like in this world. The give up is, okay, so last episode, I said the take-home project kicked my ass, but I only put like an hour into it. And as soon as I hit a roadblock, I was like, yeah, I'm done. Cause like I didn't really want the job, right? Like I was like, I don't really even want this. Why am I gonna like bang my head against the wall? So as soon as I felt an ounce of give up, I was done. And this time I was not done. I felt that give up like 6 or 7 times, to the point where it was like, fuck, am I really going to give up again? And I was like, okay, let me just give it a little bit longer. And then inevitably I would find some thread that I would like pull on, and you'd be like, ooh, when you get like a new error, or you read a Stack Overflow or something, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I think that's it. You kind of get that little thread that you start pulling on, and then now you're back off to the races. Well, this just shows how much like I wanted this one. Let me be clear on that. Like, yes, I did want it. It would be a cool opportunity. But again, I to spoiler alert, even if they did accept me, I don't think I'd feel comfortable there being the only iOS developer, because like, again, I want to see this project succeed. I want to see this space succeed. I feel like not having the Ethereum smart contract knowledge that one would need in this place, not only knowledge, but like security. Because obviously when you're dealing with like tons of money, security is of utmost importance, and cryptography and all that stuff. So like, I don't really deal with anything where security is paramount like this. I don't have so anyway, my point is, I don't feel like I'm experienced enough in this world from a developer's perspective to be the sole iOS developer on this project that they're using to push their business forward. Now, if they had an iOS developer team and I was joining the team, hell yeah, like I'd be great for it. Let's go. But again, everything is relying on me, and I'm inexperienced in this world. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable. So that's where it's at. Like I said, I got through like 6 or 7 give ups, and I didn't turn in like a finished project. I did like a little write-up. I created screenshots. That's what you're kind of seeing here. I told them what I got accomplished, where I got stuck, and they're going to reach back to me early next week. I'm filming this on Sunday afternoon. So I'm assuming it's no. And even if they say, yes, we want to move on, I would have the conversation about how, like I said, I literally don't know if I feel comfortable doing it. And I think where like they're not sure if they're going to hire just one iOS developer or maybe a couple of them. So again, if it's just one, not comfortable. If they're going to hire a couple and some of those other ones have like deep smart contract experience, and I can just kind of come in and be, learn all that smart contract stuff, but use my expertise in like the platform and Swift and like the latest and greatest stuff. Like, I think that would be a good fit. So remains to be seen. We'll find out early next week, and I assume we'll talk more, or I'll give you the verdict. It could be a very short verdict in the next episode. All right, let's talk about the content creation portion of the business. And I took a couple weeks off. Well, I've been back for like 2 weeks now putting out videos, but before that I took like 3 weeks off. So we're back now, we're putting out videos. 2 of them went great. I started experimenting with like longer videos, like the tic-tac-toe tutorial, just more in-depth tutorials rather than the quick little 8-10 minute thing. And we'll get into that in a second when we talk about the Squarespace sponsorship, because other sponsorships have kind of come into play. And that's, I think, the interesting thing to talk about is like how I'm thinking about these sponsorships, what might be coming, what's not working. And I'm a little worried about Squarespace. So, all right, we'll come back to that. We'll save that one for the end. So I won't say this company's name, but I think they're a good fit. But we had a bit of a back and forth, and I think it's kind of interesting to talk about how these sponsorships like come about, right? In case you're interested. Like, for example, if you don't know, like my Squarespace deal, you probably see a lot of videos sponsored by Squarespace. A year-long deal with them. They do 2 videos a month. Can't say how much it is contractually, but it's nice. But anyway, talking about how these come about, this company that reached out to me would hopefully be similar to that. Like, I'm not interested in signing, hey, can we sponsor 1 video? Can we sponsor 2 videos? And I understand that the companies like don't want to do, like I didn't get a year-long deal with Squarespace until I had already done like 3 different short, 2 to 3 month contracts with them. And I get where the company's coming from, right? You want to test drive, take a test drive before you commit long-term, essentially. So this new company wanted to take a test drive. I'm like, cool, but I made it very explicit from the beginning. Like, I want a long-term deal, mainly because like I don't want the headache of like dealing with finding new sponsors and all that stuff. So I was like, I'm only interested if there's potential for like long-term. They said, yes, there is, but let's come up with a trial. Usually those trials are like a couple months. We negotiated back and forth. They agreed on my price. But then they, actually there's a lot of back and forth. First of all, they agreed on the price, and then they said, yeah, we'll work up a contract, send it to you. Then they came back a couple days later, said, oh, that price is a little too expensive. Can you go down a little bit? I stood firm, and I stood firm not because I'm some like crazy awesome negotiator. Like I don't need the sponsorship. I don't want to say I don't care. That sounds harsh, but like if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, cool. You know what I mean? I'm not like stressed for money trying to give up anything to do a sponsorship. Sponsorships are actually stressful, which we'll get into in the Squarespace part. And then they came, and then I stood firm, and they said, okay, well, nice working with you. Then they came back like a couple weeks later, said, hey, I think, we do want to work with you. We'll send over a contract. I was like, great, cool. And then they send the contract, and it was for like 1 video. And I thought the trial period was going to be for like, 2 months, 3 months, something like that, a little longer. Not just 1 video, especially because the contract was like pretty serious. Like I won't go into the details, but it was pretty serious for like 1 video and the dollar amount, right? For my business overall, again, if you've heard a couple episodes back, you know what my business makes overall. And very, very, very small percentage of that. So I was like, I'm not going to like risk signing a contract and legally put myself in jeopardy for saying the wrong thing or doing something. Not that I think that was going to happen. It's just the risk was certainly not worth the reward for signing this like very big contract, or not big contract, but very like intense contract, I guess is the best way to say it. So I came back with them, basically told them that like, hey, this is too intense for 1 video. Now, if that contract was for a year-long deal, like my Squarespace is, it made more sense. Completely made more sense. But for 1 video, absolutely didn't make sense. So I went back to them, said that, and then they came back, said, okay, well, we're going to run our tests with other creators. If it works out, we'll reach out to you. So anyway, just a little insight on like the back and forth that goes on with like the sponsors. Again, I didn't say their name because I don't know if they'll be a sponsor. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But, again, just some insights on the back and forth. Another sponsor is coming on that wants to do a full-fledged like one-off video, like not like, hey, put a little ad roll in front of your videos, like do a dedicated like product review. And I review the product, and I'm going to do that after WWDC because I got to get my course out. But again, I only do those kind if it's like a product that I think is useful like to the audience. Because again, if you see me take a sponsorship, like I don't need the sponsorship money. And again, we'll come back. They're stressful. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. That'll be coming probably in June or July sometime. And then onto the Squarespace stuff. And this ties into why I started experimenting with these longer, like hour-long tutorials. Because yes, I know a lot of you aren't going to sit down and watch an hour-long video, but the people that do and people that discover, like they watch the whole thing. And YouTube algorithm-wise, if you can get a video that gets like 7 to 10 minutes of average view duration is like a big stat that we have, meaning like if you have 1,000 views, what's the average length of view, right? And if you can get it above like 7 to 10 minutes, like that video is probably going to do well. YouTube's going to recommend it, right? Because YouTube's incentives. They want people on their platform watching videos. And if you can create a video that keeps people's attention for 7 minutes, even if it's a 2-hour long video, you've kept their attention for 7 minutes, like that's a big deal, and they'll recommend that. So I needed to shift my strategy because like, I'll be straight up, like I'm not doing great in the Squarespace sense. Like they send me these ROI reports. I don't want to go into too much detail, but like, you know, ROI is based on like, did they earn their money back for what they paid me? And like in the beginning of the sponsorship, I was doing fine, but the past like 2 or 3 months, at least my ROI has been going down and down and down. I'm like, what is going on? So side note, if you are using Squarespace, hit the link, you know, help a brother out. But this is kind of why I wanted to get to on like the stressful part of it. And sometimes I think that like the money gained isn't worth like the stress. If you know how I model my business, for example, I could be hiring people, I could be building a team, I could create like a little mini Ray Wonderlic of tutorial. Like I could go down that path, but I optimize my life for like stress-free, flexibility, freedom. Like I make enough money, but now I optimize for like, let me do what I want whenever I want. You know, once you start having employees and bigger projects and sponsors and your videos have to perform, like it just adds like stress. And I'm not trying to live like that. So that's kind of where I'm at with Squarespace. Yes, the money is nice. And I hate feeling like I'm not holding up my end of the bargain. And what the ROI is, by the way, it's not how many views it gets. Like I could put out a video that got 100K views. The ROI is how many people click my link and actually sign up to Squarespace, right? So I know that's hard for like me to control, but I'm trying to do videos that get more reach and play more into the pitch of like, you know, creating portfolios or maybe a website like for your app. So you know, again, my Squarespace deal is a year. At this pace, I don't know if they'll re-sign me at the end of the year, or if they do, maybe it's for a lesser amount. I don't know. If it's for a lesser amount, I probably wouldn't do it, only for like what I said. It's not worth the stress and having me feel how I feel, that I'm not holding up my end of the bargain. So yeah, that's the downside of taking on sponsorships, is like when they do that, they have performance levels that you're supposed to hit. And yeah, sometimes I wonder if the stress is worth the money. To finish up the content creation, I'm just working on my course, Grub. I put out this logo. I experimented with like working with neon lights and Sketch, and I was pretty happy with the way it turned out. So I shared it on Twitter. Maybe you saw it. But here's the app kind of like running, not fully done because I still have some things to build, like the map kit annotations, and I got to do a whole design pass. Like the design you're seeing isn't final. Like I'm going to spruce it up a bit, you know, I just make the design more clear, but here's kind of like the working version. But essentially the app again is a location app within the convention center around WWDC. The point of it is for you to look at curated lists of like restaurants, bars, whatever, and iOS developers can check in like, hey, Sean's at Chipotle. I don't know. And, you know, I can see, you know, I have to check in voluntarily, of course, but then I could, you know, if I'm at WWDC that week, I can see where Sean's at. I can see any other of my developer friends, where are they at? And then I can like go, you know, hang out with them. Again, this is not meant to be a real product. It's meant to just be an educational product to show you how to use MapKit. We're going to use CloudKit and just SwiftUI and some other just kind of like miscellaneous stuff. So that's the kind of gist of the app. Again, don't judge the design too hard. I am going to spruce it up a bit, but that's the gist. That's what I'm working on. I almost have like the first version done. How it works, I'll do this real quick, is I kind of build it, get everything working, and then I'll go through and build it again, except when I build it again, now that I have everything working and building what I want, as I'm building it that second time, now I'm outlining the course. Now I'm kind of thinking, what order am I going to teach things in? You know, what each video is going to be, right? Because getting the map when user location working, like that's, you know, multiple different videos. So I kind of chop up those videos, basically outline the whole curriculum while I'm building it that second time. And then once I have all that done, then I start filming. I'm hoping to start filming this week, essentially. So I'm hoping to launch May 17th with the pre-sale, and that'll start, you know, with a small handful of videos, and I'll probably release 2 or 3 videos a day, like every day, until I don't want to hold myself to every day, you know, every day, every other day, just on a consistent, you know, drip of videos until the whole course is complete throughout the rest of May. So again, that'll launch May 17th. And if you've been waiting for that, like I know a lot of you have been, keep an eye out for the kind of like launch video that Monday. And the next WeWo, that's what I call it. I don't know if I've ever said that on here before. WeWo, what I'm working on, is what I call this for short. Will be after the launch, probably after WWDC actually, because I'll discuss how the launch went, and you know, I share the business numbers and talk about all that stuff, and I assume there'll be a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with WWDC and how that could potentially like change my business, because just like 2019, like no one saw, well, some people speculated about SwiftUI, but SwiftUI dropped changed everything, completely changed. So if there's any groundbreaking things at WWC, we'll be talking about that in the next podcast. Okay, on to consulting, where I had to jump back into Aluna for 2 weeks. So a quick recap on my Aluna deal. I'm on a part-time basis. They give me, a decent little salary. My shares are still vesting. I get my health insurance through them. It's kind of like an advisor role where I kind of help out, Chris, the iOS developer there, on like higher level, but I'm also helping them hire, meaning like I review resumes. We have a take-home project. I review their take-home project and decide, should we move forward with them? And then if we do, I have the initial call with them, just discussing. It's a technical call. It's a technical conversation, I should say. I'm not having them do coding exercises in front of me. I'm just talking about, where they're previously working at and what they've been doing at their job. And I just feel through like a hour-long conversation about the technical stuff that they're building, what they're working on. I can get a pretty good grasp on it if they're going to move on to the next round. So that's what I do with Aluna. That's what I get my salary for and all that stuff. However, this was like, hey, work for us essentially, full time for 2 weeks, because Chris was unavailable, for 2 weeks. So they didn't want to just stop development for 2 weeks. So we did negotiate my hourly rate there. It wasn't just because my salary is not that much because I don't do much. Really it's for my shares still vesting in the health insurance, right? But they have to give me some salary for me to be considered an employee. However, this was like hourly rate, so decent little money for 2 weeks worth of work. But what I worked on was I showed some screenshots of it on Twitter that you'll see here, and I'll show some other screenshots. But essentially, Aluna is in the midst of a redesign. They've had the same design, that I had a lot of input on back during the MVP days. And the whole concept of that design was like, let's just get the MVP out the door, right? We're building the entire app. We can come back later and kind of, when we have more time, focus on the design and kind of redesign things better, right? So that's where they're at now. They're graduating from the MVP design. They brought on a designer, basically redoing all the screens essentially. And the cool thing is they're migrating over to Swift UI. So it's not just redesigning the screens, it's basically rebuilding them in Swift UI and switching the architecture over to like MVVM, all that good stuff. So it's been funny because I haven't coded in that code base in a couple of years now. So it's funny like rewriting some of the screens I wrote 3 years ago and seeing even then, because I think I started at Aluna when I was at about the 3-year experience mark, and now I'm at like the 6-year mark. So seeing how much I've grown like since even then, from year 3 to year 6, was interesting. So if you're out there listening to this, you're on year 1 or 6 months and you can't wait to see how you grow in the next year, that's never going to stop. Even when you've been doing this for years, you're just constantly growing and evolving and improving, ideally, right? So it's always funny to look back at like code you wrote and see like, wow, I'm much better now. So that was kind of cool. But the other news with the Aluna and the consulting is we did hire a senior iOS developer. Again, if you've been following the show, I said I'm only involved with Aluna until we hire a senior iOS developer and the turnover is complete, right? So we've hired one that's on kind of like a contract to hire, basis. So I'm still there making sure the contract like works out. But if the contract works out, they sign full time, I'll probably stick around for another month or two to turn it over, make sure everything's good to go, but then I'm done. So that is the good news. We have hired somebody there finally. So when I say I'm done with Aluna, I don't know if I'll ever fully be done, just because I'm I've been around since the early days. I started the app. I've kept great relationships. So I don't know if I'll be around in some sort of like consultancy role or advisory role that's like really limited. Ideally, I can like get some maybe some shares for advisory. That'd be great. Kind of leads into the next topic of like angel investing, right? Because all angel investing is getting shares in startups, to really dumb it down. And by working at Aluna for 3-4 years and maybe advising for them and getting shares, like that's just like investing money, except I invested my time and my skills. So now I have, Aluna in my portfolio, and they've raised their Series A. They're, progressing. So nothing is guaranteed in startups. I'm not saying they'll get acquired, but I definitely think they're a strong, or there's a good likelihood that they will get acquired at some point, which will mean the exit, which will mean my shares will actually be worth something. Because a lot of times in startup land, those shares are just lottery tickets. They almost never turn out to be worth anything. And I've said this like way back even when I joined Aluna. Like I was like, oh, I think this one has a chance. And again, in startup land, it's a very slim chance, but even just having a chance is like a big deal. So that's why I'm continuing to work with like Aluna and have my shares go. So let's talk about this angel investing, because it kind of ties in with Creator View, right? Because yes, angel investing, you invest in the company, you give them money, but I want to work with companies that I can help, whether that's my iOS developer skills, if they're building an iOS app, or my network of developers, I can help them find talent for their company, or however it is. I want to be able to help them besides just handing them money. And part of that is having the experience of building a startup, a company, a product yourself. Whether it succeeds or fails is kind of irrelevant. I mean, obviously success is better, but just having that experience, and it'll help me help them better in the future. And again, if it's successful and makes money, great. But with CreatorView, I'm thinking about, and don't hold me to this because I'm not 100%, I'm like 97% sure I want to do this, is I'm thinking about hiring a developer to help me build CreatorView, right? Because of course I could build it myself, and I will be building it. It won't just be like one developer building it and I don't do anything. It'll be both of us building it, but I'll have some help. And that's because what I want to focus on with CreatorView is the business side of things, right? What features are we going to build? The marketing strategy, any strategic business partnerships, like the monetization stuff, like just all that business side of things, right? That's what I want to focus on. So if I can have somebody helping me build it while I do that, great. And I want to kind of build a little team around that, because also part of building a startup is building a team. So again, I kind of want to use CreatorView as a vehicle to help me get experience with the startups while also creating a product that I'm very passionate about and interested in and can be successful and make money, right? Now, this developer hire, I don't know if I'm going to put out a tweet like I usually do. If you've seen me do that, I get like hundreds of DMs. It's very time consuming. I have to sift through a lot. I can't like respond to everybody. I don't know if I want to go that route. And I also don't know if this is like a hire, like are they going to pay a salary? Is it a part-time contractor? Like they don't need to be full-time if they can just give me 10 to 15 hours a week, maybe something like that. Or maybe somebody's interested in like coming on as a co-founder is a strong word because that's like a marriage. So I don't want to say that. Like for me to be a co-founder with someone, like I have to know them for years. We have to have a great relationship. Like that's a big deal. But if someone's, maybe they want to come on for a little piece of the equity or something like that. I don't know. There's multiple ways it can go. But I am thinking about doing that again for the purpose of helping me get experience building a company, which will help my portfolio companies later. So that's like CreatorView. We're kind of done there. But with the angel investing more in depth is, I put out this tweet basically saying like, hey, I'm angel investing. And it was kind of on a whim. Just like when I put out a tweet looking for a job a couple months ago, I literally had the idea and put out a tweet like 2 minutes later. Sometimes I don't think things through, even though like nothing bad happened. But that's what this was too, because I thought like, why not now? Because like angel investing is always something I knew I wanted to do with like the rest of my life. Like that's my like 40-year game. That's what I want to do. Because I view angel investing as like helping enable the future. I know that sounds audacious or whatever, but it's true, right? People have great ideas, great products, but they just don't have the capital to help get that off the ground. You give them the capital, granted, most are going to fail, but you help kind of enable the future. And I like that idea. Not to mention like my retirement job I want to be is like, I just set meetings with founders all day. I hear their pitches and then, I'm just investing in various startups. I think that's, for me, that's just a very intellectually like awesome life. I just have meetings with super smart people, talented, building great things, and I decide whether to invest or how I can help them. Like, that's awesome. That's what I want to do with the rest of my life. So the reason I tweeted it out is, well, there's requirements to be an angel investor, right? You have to be an accredited investor. Hopefully they do away with these because it's a whole nother soapbox, but like startup investing is some of the biggest returns and the biggest gains, way to generate wealth. However, only the rich have access to it. It's like only the rich have a chance to get richer, so we won't even go down that path. So I hope they get rid of these accreditation laws, but for now they exist. So essentially what that means is you have to make 200 grand a year or have $1 million liquid, right? And I qualify for that. So I thought, why not start? Because again, this angel investing thing is the rest of my life. So even if I fail, stumble, don't do great these first 5 years of it, or maybe I only make 1 or 2 investments a year, I'm starting to get that experience and starting to learn, right? Like when I hop on calls with founders, like I can kind of get a feel for like what a good founder is, right? Or I can get an understanding of like what a good pitch is, right? So I'm hopping on these calls even now. Like I think I've had 10 or so based on that tweet, and they've been so like intellectually stimulating. Like they've been so interesting. But I'm just getting started with this. So like, to be quite frank, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I'm very honest, like with the people I'm having a call with, I say that like, hey, I'm just getting started. And I kind of tell a shortened version of that story about how, I'm just getting the ball rolling. Cause I don't want to give off this wrong impression that I'm some great investor. I know what I'm doing. Absolutely not it. But yeah, we started having these calls. I'm learning a ton about this. And again, I'm trying to learn the industry. I like to learn by doing, right? I've read a bunch of books. I've followed the space since 2014. Like I was studying it when I was trying to get into space back then. And I've followed along ever since. So I feel like I have good book knowledge on it, but as we all know, like book knowledge ain't shit. Like you have to do it. You have to get experience. Like that's the only way you're going to get like good at it. So that's kind of why I wanted to like start the ball rolling. So I guess if you are working on something, you have a startup or something like that you're arranging your seed round, your angel round, or your friends and family round, something like that, definitely reach out. DMs are open on Twitter. Don't reach out. I mean, I guess feel free to reach out if you just have like an indie app on the side, but I can't be the sole developer because typically like an angel round could be a couple $100,000 to $1 million. I don't have that for one company, right? Like I need to invest in like 20 companies. So I would need to like be one of like a few investors in your angel round, right? So if you don't have any investors lined up or not set up for that, don't reach out because I can't help you. But if you are kind of like finishing off your round, you're looking for more investors, definitely reach out. But yeah, I'm excited about that. Just kind of getting the ball rolling on what the game I want to play for the rest of my life. So that wraps up this episode. Again, I didn't plan on doing this one, but a lot happened in the past couple weeks. The next episode will be a few weeks from now after WWDC and after my course launch. And we'll discuss how the launch went, how sales went, and then all the cool stuff that is likely to get announced at WWDC. Fingers crossed for the new iMac Pro. Those colorful iMacs were cool. Not my cup of tea. I want the big dog. I want the big powerhouse, right? So anyway, we'll see what happens there, and we'll see you in the next episode.